Well met, everyone. I am Rich the Lich, and in today's video, I am not going to complain, react, talk about, well, maybe the react part. Too much of the OGL thing. What's going on with D&D? It's the elephant in the room, right? What is going to happen with creators? People like myself, wannabe creators, I should say. Instead of rambling on about the pains of it, the concerns I might have, yay, nay, boo, boo, the fire swamp, whatever, Princess Bride, you know what I mean. What I'm going to do in this video is simply talk to you about what it is that I'm going to do as a reaction, as a result of what seems to be out there. I don't know enough of the legalese of what's really going to happen. But what I'm going to do about the OGL, what is my take on it, but more in the sense of action. What am I going to change? Will I change? Will I do anything different moving forward? Both personally, with my gaming group at the table, and with the YouTube channel. So, let's begin with Worlds, games. Will I be playing something else? Yes, I actually will. And here's the biggest reason why. To me, the OGL and what might be happening with the gaming license and who's allowed to use what and the effect on creators is just that. It's affecting me as a creator. And wherever my imagination goes, wherever my creativity flows, is oftentimes where I think my table needs to go. See, no matter what happens as a company, unless you just want to simply boycott the practices of any given company, it generally doesn't affect the game in and of itself, right? And what I mean by that is, let's say you learn about some really shady business, as was the case with Blizzard, is the case perhaps with Blizzard Entertainment. But the day-to-day of when I play Hearthstone, when I play World of Warcraft, Diablo, it doesn't mean those games suddenly suck. Those games that I had so much fun playing suddenly suck. But maybe you have a situation, as was the case with Overwatch 2, where you just don't like their business model. The way that they sort of paywall, so to speak, right? That might be the impetus. That might be enough for you to say, you know what, I'm going to venture forth elsewhere. To show my dislike for what they're doing, I'm going to show that with my wallet by not supporting it. See, whatever's happening with the OGL is not going to affect my D&D game and my group. I still have the books on my shelf, wherever that shelf is. I still have what's there in D&D Beyond. Now, granted, I don't know what's going to happen with all of that. I have the Legendary Bundle. I'm invested about $1,000 into D&D Beyond. So I still have that. And I'm savvy enough technologically with PDFs, copy, paste, printing my own things, saving things on my hard drive, that whatever books I do have, I can store those, right? I can keep those on my files, so if something was to ever happen, and D&D, whatever happens out there becomes a smoking, burning pyre of nothing, I can still have the content, and I can still invite my players to come to my table and play the game with me. But, as a creator, I'm reluctant, I'm hesitant. I'm concerned that whatever I may venture forth with, especially because I'm not going to invest the time and energy to draw in all of the intellectual property, copyright lawyers in the tabletop gaming industry to make sure it's all prim and proper. I'm hesitant to create something for GM's Guild. I'm hesitant to create something for 5th edition D&D. And one thing that this long break, this 5-month break between videos has done for me is it's allowed me to really put my head down, nose to the grindstone on my world of Silberat, which you may have heard of in numerous videos. I am creating my own, creating my own 5th edition D&D world. A world, not unlike Eberron, Forgotten Realms, Wildmount, Tal'Dorei. My own world to be used within the 5th edition space. Now, what's interesting for me, and the sort of interesting situation I was in, or I am in, is this product was going to be released entirely for free, 100%. I'll give all the links possible on my Instagram, here on my YouTube, wherever I can, of simply click here to download this Google Drive PDF or whatever format I want to use, Dropbox, and you have access to it in its entirety. So I don't think I'm in the demographic that might be being hit, that is being hit by the OGL stuff, rumors or confirmed. Because number one, I just don't make the money that something like a Critical Role would, right? There's a lot out there on what are the effects of OGL on Critical Role and big companies like that. So I was releasing it entirely for free way before anything was announced with 1D&D. I've been working on this world for 2.5 years now. But the reason why is because I was using the artwork of some high-profile, well-known, well-established, professional, high-level concept artists and illustrators. And as a promise, the relationship that we built in me asking, like speaking with them directly, permission to use their work, they said, yes, go ahead and use it. You don't have to pay me a cent as long as the product that you're using it in remains entirely commercial free. Okay? But the other thing I've learned in working on it, especially solo, I'm doing the layout, the art, the design. And when I say art, again, I just mentioned that I'm using a lot of high-level art in it from other artists, but the maps, the editing, the writing, moving things around, getting things prim and proper, fonts, all of this stuff, the stories, the systems in place. If I create a new class for D&D, I've got to make it work within and consider the other classes that already exist in 5th edition D&D and their rule set and so on. And as you would expect when you're looking at trying to create a project of that scale and scope, that's 300-400 pages, 9 months is not realistic. It has taken me a long time, so long that now that this OGL thing has come out, I see it, to me it is the writing is on the wall. And regardless of what fully comes out of it, if they backtrack, which I doubt, or whatever may be, I guess I'm fortunate in that I haven't released it yet. And even though it was intended to be entirely for free, the idea that I might have branched off using my own artwork where now I can commercially sell it, right? Because that was the only stipulation that kept me, the only reason why I maintained that this thing was going to be released entirely for free. All the effort, the 2 years of effort and work and grinding, and the fact that I do have to pay with the software I'm using. I pay for the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite. I pay for my Adobe Premiere Pro or Adobe InDesign. But it was going to be released entirely for free because I'm using someone else's artwork, and that's a promise I made to them in using it. But moving forth, if there was the undiscovered lands in the West that no one has really talked about, or I didn't really talk about in that book, and someday I wanted to create that little chapbook or that little section, but I wanted to monetize that or sell it or put it on Drive-Thru RPG or something like this. Now I'm running into that hiccup space a little bit, right? Where it's using their IP. Yes, I'm not just cut and pasting things from the Monster Manual, but I'm using their game, their baby. It's 5th edition D&D. That's not my system. So the fact that, it's like 9 o'clock at night and jets are still flying over in the background. Anyway, hopefully you don't hear that. But now it's one of those, now you can't unhear it, right? So because this project of mine, this world that I'm building, is taking so damn long, and yes, admittedly, I'm dragging my feet on it. I've got life to live, right? A job to do and all this other stuff. I'm a freelance, on the side hobbyist creator, not a full-time creator. Excuse me. So the fact that it's taken me so long is it allows me to simply start over, completely start over, and turn it into something, even if I still release it for free because I want to use someone else's artwork, I'm going to be turning my Silberot world into an entirely new project. Meaning it's my own world, with my own story, lore, details, and everything in between. My own entire system. My own thing. Now, I have not publicly or professionally released anything like this, but I assure you, as I'm sure most of you do, I've got thousands, and I'm not exaggerating, thousands of, let me show you what I mean. One moment. To give you a sense of scale, oh my gosh, why is everyone talking to me now? Here is the 5th edition official player's handbook. Okay, check this out. In this folder is over 20 years of brainstorming, notes, writing, development on a game that I was creating, a tabletop role-playing game, my own system, from the ground up. Kind of inspired by The Matrix, maybe. You know, the idea of what would happen to humans or a society, a life, what can you play if you were able to use more than what's said, 8 to 10% of your brain, right? Things that, what's interesting is that was, no idea exists in a vacuum, right? Like everything comes from somewhere else. So everyone, whether they're knowingly or not, is always robbing from someone else, right? Everything. I don't give a damn what fantasy creation monster. That thing can go all the way back to the things in the, what is the Edda, right? Scandinavian mythology, history, the words, the poetic books, the words of the skalds. That can go back to Beowulf, right? Whatever, including D&D, right? It doesn't just go back as far as Tolkien. You know what? There's an interesting ramble here. I think I had read that Games Workshop, and quote me if, or correct me in the comments if you know I'm wrong. I think Games Workshop was the first company to create green orcs. Like to say that iconic look now, right? Because I don't think Tolkien's orcs in the movies, obviously Lord of the not just the cartoon, but Peter Jackson's version of it, which comes way after Games Workshop was founded and started in Blizzard Entertainment's Warcraft series. But I don't think Blizzard was the first one with green orcs. But anyway, what I'm meaning by that, and that digression, is everything comes from somewhere else. So what's interesting, though, is when I wrote that world, or when I started creating that game system, I've play-tested it a lot. I've sat down and I've had meetings with people that are no longer friends and business partners and so on and so forth. And this is before I started writing that stuff in like 99, 2000. Earlier, 98, that's how long ago? So this is before the resources were available for me to get on the internet, so to speak, and look at ArtStation and pull artwork, and YouTube videos were not being made yet to show you how to make something or use a word publishing desktop software or something like that. But most of that content was way before movies like Limitless and Lucy and the things, the idea of using more of your brain. Of course, that comes from who knows how far back. But the point is, it's not my first rodeo in trying to create my own system. So that's what I'm going to do with this Silbarat. And the catalyst for that, the reason for that, in a way I look at it from a Bob Ross perspective of the happy accidents, the serendipitous nature of it all, is quite simply, this OGL thing doesn't have me scared. I'm fine. I don't have anything out there where I'm going to be losing my intellectual rights or my property or my money. Okay? I've been around long enough in life, and I've been through enough things, good, bad, and otherwise. I'm really damn good at pivoting, okay? My imagination and creativity cannot be stifled by legalese or other things like that. And I have run into, in other artistic endeavors, namely an apparel clothing company, I have run into cease and desist letters. So I've been down that road before myself, professionally. But point is, as I was dragging my feet getting this world done, I kind of thought, what a perfect time to see the shitstorm of Reddits and YouTubes and forums and message posts and Discords and discussion about OGL. How's it going to affect you guys? And clearly the statement made by Kobold Press, right? Like they were identified. Kobold Press, Pathfinder, Critical Role are like the juggernauts, right? Because somewhere in the OGL has something to do with if you've made X amount of money, right? We can look at you a lot more, right? No one's going to look at me and my little ass sitting in my office writing some random book about D&D unless it takes off like wildfire, right? But Kobold Press has even announced They're going to honor the Kickstarters and some products that are already in development or currently on the way to backers and, currently along the shipping lanes. But moving forward, they announced they are going to be creating something called, I forget what it's called. You can look it up officially on Kobold Press's website. Project something something. And it is going to be their own system, their own rules. And they really made it a point to mention a sentence in there about basically free, just like it used to be for D&D, right? To elaborate on it, extrapolate, create more, create better. So I thought, what perfect timing. So, in long, as much as in the beginning of the video, I don't know, I guess I'm passionate about it, but not from a complaint point of view of like, the damn OGL and they're a business and now they want money on their business. I get it. I've been in corporate for 30 plus years. I've been around companies and things that I understand it, okay? But where I'm going with my world and where most of my creative energy is going to go, and which is why there's been a lull for 5 months, is I've been working on this world. But this world, Silbarat, and I may change the name, is now going to become, so far it's still going to maintain, it's going to be still fantasy, some form of it. High, dark, I don't know yet, grim, whatever. It's still going to be fantasy, but I'm making my own system. Taking the notes that I've had in the past, and that's just this in writing, like back old school before I was typing everything. I have an entire 9 gig folder on my hard drive. Think about that for a second. 9 gigabytes in text files. That's a lot of shit. So I'm going to look through some of my old notes, stuff I haven't visited for over 2 decades. Brainstorm through my journals, look through my notepad files. Things that I wanted to keep on the back burner of someday I might use this idea as a creator, right? No different than Neil Gaiman, Stephen King of, here's a book that I set on the shelf 30 years ago that I now found the time to actually write. Excuse me again. So, I'm moving forward with Silbarat, my fantasy world, no longer saying it D&D, and it will be in my own world, my own system. So what I would like for all of you to do in the comments, please, if you can, whoever's watching this and still around after 5 months, comment below, what are some game systems, not worlds, and some, I understand they're often one and the same, right? Like there's a lore, world, narrative section and story of this is the world, and then there's the system, how you play, right? So whether you're talking Fudge, whether you're talking D20, getting away from OGL stuff, right? Its own thing. What are some systems out there that are your favorites that I should take a look at for inspiration? Again, nothing I create, because you can't really copyright mechanics. I can say roll 3d6, you cannot copyright that. Yahtzee and Go and all these other board games of old were doing that way before D&D was doing it, right? So you can't copyright that. But what are some systems that I can pull from for inspiration? Right? So I can see, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Because maybe taking it even further, if you can mention what are some systems that you are pretty sure, and maybe just a Wikipedia search will suffice, are commercial free, do have a Creative Commons license associated with it, where I created this, some math nerd, because I'm not very savvy with that, has laid things out in a spreadsheet, and they figured out 3d6 roll under stat plus skill is a really cool thing. And when you use magic, the DM comes up with whatever it might be. What are some systems that I can look to so that I can focus a little more on the world, the story, and draw you into the breadth of what Silbarat is, and not feel like I'm simultaneously having to manage, playtest, and balance an entire system of mechanics and rules while simultaneously creating the most compelling world possible. So I'd love to see your thoughts on that. As far as the channel, well, I'm still playing in 5th edition D&D with my table, with my group of 9. I think we have 9. I'm running Silbarat with them, right? We're going to continue that because I don't want to just jump ship. Definitely not because of the OGL. But again, it's just sort of interesting timing on this seemingly like exodus from all things D&D. right? There was an awesome video by Mr. Tarask where he shows kind of taking his 5e books or all his D&D books and just throwing them on the damn floor, right? It's kind of a slap in the face. You know, I don't know what the saying is. Don't bite the hand that feeds you, something like this. And again, I don't know enough of the legalese where you might in comments be like, dude, calm down, it doesn't affect you. I understand that. But I'm just pumped up and I'm jazzed and I'm excited for the first time in a long time because in a sense, and maybe this is the essence, the meat of this video, it's like I've been given permission to create what I've always wanted to create, to build the world and the story and have it play in the way I want to without having to confine it and say, but that won't work for magic in that nation because what about concentration and the fact that you can't have more than 2 spells going at a time? You know, or cantrips are always free. If you want to cast Eldritch Blast, you just do it forever. So this world is dangerous and lethal and these monsters are a menace, but the warlock can keep slinging those Eldritch, you know what I mean? But now with my own world, it can simply say cantrips are considered leveled spells and cantrips don't exist when you're in this area. Undead do have immunity to critical hits and they do have resistance to piercing damage and undead cannot be sneaked attacked. Right? And it's like I've been given permission to move forward with like a weight off my shoulders. So while I'm going to finish my 5th edition D&D group and campaign, before OGL was released, I started putting the feelers out because I was getting a little bit, it's just getting stale for me. Not just 5th edition, but I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for 37 years, running it for 32 of those. And yes, I have played many, many role-playing games, and I've had some of my best memories. My best memories are at the table role-playing, not with D&D. So after, and maybe for you, here's some ideas of some games. If you're completely off the wagon and you're like, fuck D&D, I'm done. I'm done. Here's some worlds that you should take a look at. Systems, entirely new things. Godlike. This is where I would go, especially as sort of a new group, new table, maybe new game master. Let's not call it dungeon master anymore. A new game master. Here's where I would go. These are ones that I feel like you can really get your sink your teeth into. That are really good systems that I played them all. Unknown Armies. You could. That cough is not just me being annoying on the video. That's been some of the issues of what I've been dealing with for the better part of a month and a half, it seems like. You could, of course, go the route of Pathfinder, or maybe even go to an older edition of D&D. But again, if you're off the D&D wagon entirely, Slay, Unknown Armies, Godlike are 3 of my favorite systems. I just love the way they play. I love the world of Slay, and I love the story of Unknown Armies, but the system is elegant. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay is phenomenal. Not the one where it uses all the special its own dice. I think it's a D100 system. Incredible. That's one you should look into. Now, for the channel, you're going to notice, and I'll change the splash page or whatever, I'm not saying I'm moving away from D&D, because I also do not want to discredit what it's done for the hobby, what it's done for me creatively. That's almost like saying I heard something bad about Tolkien, and all of a sudden, the hell with Tolkien. It's kind of the grandfather of this whole thing for me, right? D&D is still that, and it still can be. But the channel is definitely going to pivot, and it's going to start exploring other worlds, other systems, other stories. Coming up soon, we will be exploring Symbaroum. I read this. The system's pretty cool. I haven't run it yet, so I don't know how it plays, but it sounds pretty cool. But I think a lot of that is the coolness of it is it's just not D&D. And that's maybe saying a lot. The world, the lore, not just how well it's written, it's phenomenal. Anything by Free League lately for me. Morkborg, Symbaroum, Tales from the Loop, Vasen, I don't know how to say it. I have that on my shelf as well. But I'll dive into this a little bit, especially if I get to run it with my players. Another one is Blades in the Dark, Savage Worlds, of course. I feel like there's another one that starts with an Burning Wheel, things like that. Right here, Degenesis. You saw me do a video on this already, talking about the art and design of it. But I don't know that that's one that you should play, because it feels a little convoluted, and it's hard, especially if you're not a veteran role player or dungeon master, game master. It seems hard to weave through of how you make it work at your table. But talking about a book like that and Symbaroum, The Art of Cuphead. What the hell? This is not a role-playing game. It's just an art book of the video game. And The Electric State, Simon Stalenhag. I think he's the guy that created the Tales from the Loop, like as a, I don't know what you call it, graphic novel, a picture book with story, I don't know, that they then built. Right here is the internationally lauded author and artist of Tales from the Loop and Things from the Flood, narrative art books that stunned the world with a vision of an alternate Scandinavia in the 1980s. But on this channel, you're going to notice me pushing towards the creative side of things, of the things that spark and light that fire to not only sort of give you permission to let your imagination go, so inspiring things and things that motivate you to create, but also the nuts and bolts of using InDesign, of actually laying something out and clicking on buttons and uploading things to send out to the community, to the public, to actually get your worlds out there, to get your ideas in someone else's hands, to let you know if it sucks and if it's good, so that you can create better as you move forward, to not be so afraid of revealing your baby, so to speak. So that's where the channel is going to go. So as much as I said 25 minutes ago, this is not going to be an OGL bashing. It still isn't, because I don't know enough about it, like legally and logistically and literally, of, is this really what's happening? Sounds like it. But I just feel like there's enough whispers from the community, but also, most importantly, the whispers from my own head. And what that is that's the 13-year-old. That's the 19-year-old. That's the 27-year-old. That's the 30-year-old that started writing this, where I used to just create, and I had an idea of a world and what the people would look like moving in that world, and as a player at my table playing a character in that world, and what dice they would roll, if they would roll dice at all. So to the OGL, and whatever the shitstorm that's blown in from Seattle or Washington as a result, thank you. See you guys later.